Going, guys? Welcome to the first episode of the Coaches Podcast. It's Matt here from Hockey Pro Training. I'm here with my co-host, Kevin Muller from HockeyShare.com. How's it going today, Kevin?
Going awesome. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing fantastic. We had a few technical difficulties getting this first episode underway, but we're here. We're ready to do it, and it should be fun. We're going to try to cover as many hockey-related topics as possible on a weekly basis. Also, take your guys' questions if you have them. So we got a few questions coming in right now on the old Instagram. So I think we're going to try to do cover a topic an episode, topic or two, dive deep into that, and then just do some questions and see if we can help you guys out with your games, your lives, whatever we can through this podcast, and go from there. What do you think, Kevin?
That sounds perfect. Yeah, we want to hit one topic at least, kind of that we think is pressing in the hockey world at the moment, and then definitely Q&A, because I think that's where you can help guys out that have questions and give an opportunity to kind of give back and give some different perspective on questions that people may have in the audience here. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I get a lot of questions on the Instagram, and I'm sure you do through your Instagram and your email and everything like that, and from your players. And it's always kind of hard to go back into an Instagram message and just type out a big answer to how do I get faster? How do I do this better? How do I do that better? And you try and you want to kind of give back as much as you can, help out as much as you can, but it's not always easy in that kind of a format. So maybe this will be easier to get a little deeper into these answers and just try to give you guys what you need to improve your games.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think maybe, Matt, it's important if we just give a quick summary on kind of who we are a little bit and what our experience is, so people have an idea sort of where the perspective is coming from. And,
for sure.
I'll start with myself quick here. I founded Hockey Share in 2006. So we're 11 years strong now. We advise coaches and we provide a platform for coaches worldwide, from the National Hockey League all the way down to beginner learn to play programs. So it's kind of been a cool experience. I've coached AAA hockey for the last 6 years in the States. I coached AA hockey for 8 years before that. So this will be my 15th season coaching. Guys have trained guys on a skill standpoint, all the way up to Division I college here in the States and playing pro, all the way down to, again, teaching guys how to skate for the first time. So got 15 years of team and individual skill training experience under the belt, and, just trying to give back to the hockey world.
Nice. It's funny that I started my coaching journey maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and one of the main reasons I started the Hockey Pro Training thing, and if people don't know, that's my account is Hockey Pro Training on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, etc. One of the reasons I started it was I couldn't really find a whole lot of information for new coaches. I was a player. I played professionally for almost 10 years in Europe, and I just kind of got coaching offers and coaching opportunities because of my hockey background. And what I learned really quickly was being a hockey player doesn't necessarily translate to being a good hockey coach. And so I went frantically searching the internet, trying to improve, trying to learn, trying to find new drills, skills, stuff to work on. And I actually came across Kevin's stuff, first of all, way back in 2013, 14. So now to do a podcast with him is almost kind of surreal. He was like a celebrity to me. He was the one guy on YouTube where he was really just breaking down the real basic skills that you need to teach, especially new players to the game. And so it's a kind of a cool opportunity to do this now. So we'll see where this goes. And that was a little bit about my background. I played professionally in Europe for 10 years, mostly in Holland. I'm a Dutch Canadian, so I have a Dutch passport. That's how I was able to get over there in the first place. Played my junior hockey here in Saskatchewan in the SJHL for the Estevan Bruins. That was a great opportunity. And right when I was 20 years old, I went overseas. I got the opportunity to do that. And it was a fantastic opportunity that kind of led me down the road to coaching here later in my career. So this is where we're at. I make a lot of tutorial videos online just for the reason that I know there's other coaches out there looking for the same information, looking for the same help to improve their practices, their own skills, for not only coaches but players as well. So I think through Kevin's site, through this podcast, we'll definitely be able to help not only players but coaches as well learn anything they're looking to learn.
Yeah, no, it's good perspective just on the background of, kind of who we are. And, I did play hockey too. I kind of forgot to say that, but played AAA growing up, then played Division III college hockey, and got
Nice.
into my coaching journey early. But no, it's exciting. It's exciting to be able to give back. It's exciting to be able to, answer questions and give perspective based on experience. So,
And I think it's nice as well, sorry to cut you off, that you have such a big background in actually coaching teams and whatnot, right? Everything
mhm.
I've done up to this point has been mostly just skills development, a lot of minor hockey stuff. I was a coach mentor here in the city for the last 3 years, so I go out and help teams just run practices more smoothly, fluidly, and stuff like that. So I don't have a whole lot of experience actually team coaching, so I think it's nice to have that background. And yeah, my playing and skills background to answer different kind of questions, and like you said, different perspectives on different topics.
Yeah, no, I love it, and it'll be interesting to get some of your perspectives because maybe you haven't gone through it as much now. But the first
Hmm.
topic we kind of want to cover are tryouts,
Yeah.
and it's a big topic. It's a very broad topic, and it'd be interesting to hear your perspective on tryouts from kind of more of the strictly the skill standpoint, and I'll try to
Hmm.
chime in a little bit more directed towards the team elements because they're very, very different. And
Hmm.
what a head coach and what a head coach has to go through during a tryout process versus what an evaluator has to go through during the tryout process is a very different animal, but
For sure.
not one inherently right or wrong. I always joke, and I do the skills training too, so this is why I joke about it. But I always say the skills guys have the easiest job in the world because they never have to really get involved in the politics, right?
For sure.
And let's be honest, let's get something out of the way before we start tryouts. There's politics involved at high
Hmm.
levels.
Hmm.
Like that's just the reality.
Hmm. And I think that even growing up myself, I've talked about this before, that I was always kind of the bubble kid, right? So I was always first year tier two, then second year tier one, and then you'd hear, oh, you're close to making the team, and I don't know, something happened, blah blah blah, and then you kind of just you take that politics as almost a way out. Sometimes I know maybe I did, where I always try to tell kids that make sure that you're good enough where the politics don't come into play, right? And when you're the bubble kid, you're putting yourself at the mercy of maybe Joe's dad knows Tim's dad a little better than your dad knows Tim's dad, and you never know, right? These things do go on everywhere in the hockey world, and you get messages from all over the place saying, "What about politics? What about politics?" And yeah, these things happen, but I think it's important to make sure that you're not there. You're a step above, and you're not going to be cut because you're the bubble boy and stuff like that. So I think that's one thing to factor in when you're looking at tryouts and you're looking at your summer training. You're looking at the work that you're putting in to make sure you're there and you're on that level.
And I think you have to keep in mind too that there's a balance, there's a tipping point between politics and accountability, right?
Hmm.
For who you are as a player, kind of like what you're saying is be better, like
Yeah,
make it so that there's no distinction. But one thing that I think is often overlooked is it's an opinion.
for sure.
Right. If you and I sit down and we haven't talked about this before, but if Matt and I sit down right now and we have to evaluate and pick a team, and I always say this, the top's really easy to figure out. So is the bottom, right? The guys that don't belong, it's easy to
Hmm.
figure out, right? So the tough part is that sandwich, that meat in between. That's the tough part because we may look at three players and only have two spots left, and you go, well, it's got to be this guy and this guy, and I go, you're out of your mind. It's got to be this guy and this
Yeah,
guy, right? Because
yeah,
maybe I value skating,
for
right? For
sure.
me, like I'm a skating guy too, right? So my value that I place on skating is maybe higher than what yours is, and I'm just using that as an
Hmm.
example. Um, but it's my opinion. It's
Hmm.
not that I'm 100% right. It's I have to look at it and go, what's my teaching style?
Hmm.
What am I able to give this player, and where can I develop him? And so for me, if I think he's got a good level, a solid foundation in skating, I'm more excited about that than me having to teach a kid basics
For
and
sure.
get him up to speed, right?
Hmm.
Because I think that's a longer process, and not that you have to take the short view on everything when you're putting a team together, but if the majority of your team is at one level, a high level, if let's just call it a 7 out of 10 average skater on your team, it's really hard to incorporate a 3 out of 10 skater
Hmm.
into that, even though maybe he's a better hockey player.
Hmm. So, like you said, it kind of comes down to what you need on your team specifically, right? And I think that's where the skills part comes into it. And I think that's where I know personally I struggled a lot growing up, is that I was a great team player. I was a great passer. I saw the game well. I read the game well. I was a good teammate. I had all those kind of intangibles. But when it came time to doing the circle drills, forwards to backwards, it was a panic fest for me, one. And then two, like I would really be exposed in those drills, and that's where I would go from maybe a 7 out of 10 to now I'm a 4 out of 10. And that coach doesn't want to deal with trying to teach me how to cross over backwards or pivot forwards to backwards, because he can just see I'm not there yet. So it's easier to take the kid that can skate, that can do those things, and hopefully just teach him how to pass, how to see the game better. So it comes down to what you need, like you said, and what you want to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And coming down to needs, there could be a really talented small forward, but maybe the team is already structured that it's already got 3 small talented forwards. Well, guess what? Probably the next guy in line's got to have size. If you're building a team from taking the head coach standpoint. So the small player may have a little bit more talent, but maybe I look at it and I go, geez, overall, we're not real big right now. I need to take a bigger guy. And maybe I realize he's going to be a project, but I got to have somebody that can play the physical game. And these 3 forwards that are, top 6 guys for me, geez, maybe they don't have a chance to do that.
That's a good point. So here's a question I'm going to throw at you. This is a question I get all the time. I got a big tryout coming up in 2 weeks. So I'm trying out for a AAA team. What do I do? I get this question from kids all the time. It's a super vague question. It's very hard for me to help you at this point because there's 2 weeks left or a week left. So the work should have already been done. But what do you tell a kid like that? What's your kind of go-to advice in that spot?
Why didn't you ask me this question 4 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Here's the reality, right? And I can tell you this from the perspective of a AAA coach who gets this all the time. We're humans. So it's easier for me to take a product I understand. So if you've decided that you're just going to show up at my tryout, but I've had 6 weeks to work with a kid in our spring program or something like that, where I know what I'm going to get, right? Because a lot of times the spring programs, at least in the States, I can't speak for north of the border by you guys, but we do about I think it's 5 to 6 week spring program that leads right into tryouts, right? So that's long enough for me to kind of understand like who the kid is and how they react. Not just, the thing that I dislike about tryouts is everybody gets really excited and has a ton of energy and they're the perfect person. They're polite. They're right. It's this tiny view on a player where, over the 6 weeks, you're going to have at least one day where they don't feel good, where the kid's tired, where the kid is just having an off day on the ice. And you learn a lot about that kid. You go, how does he react? Right. And sometimes good and sometimes bad, right? Like,
because that's hockey, right? It's never going to go your way 100% of the time, and that's what you want to see.
That's it. So you have to understand. I think if you're approaching somebody with a question of what do? I have this tryout in 2 weeks, and it's a controllable where you could have been on the ice with those coaches and gotten to know players. I think you've missed the boat a little bit. Now, do programs exploit that fact to get kids on the ice and get money in the door? Of course they do. That's unfortunately part of the nature of the beast. I'm just saying I think it's difficult to make a really big lasting impression on a guy in 2 or 3 days.
For sure. Especially if you are that bubble kid and you're not the top 6, right? You're the top 6. It's easy to make that impression. I've ran a lot of tryouts on the ice for people who are evaluating in the stands. And for me, it's like, there he is, there he is, there he is. It's not hard to find that top 6 kid, but like you said, you get that guy on your team for the first couple of weeks, and you don't know who he is, and a little adversity hits, and you're all of a sudden you see him dragging his lip, and he's pouting, and he's negative. That's got to be a nightmare for a coach.
It's the worst thing you can do, right? It's the buyer's remorse.
Yeah.
You get 2 weeks into the season, and you're just going, what did I get myself into? And because youth hockey, and I'm not a proponent that it should be this way, but you're stuck with your team, right? You have what you have.
There's no trades.
I don't think you should be able to cut guys after the fact. I think that's bad because we're dealing with kids. We're not dealing with professionals at this point. But yeah, I mean, it can make for a long season, right? And
I've seen that at the pro level where you sign a guy for whatever. He's now your highest paid guy. You're a week into the season. This guy's at the bar doing splits on the weekend, and it's not even the weekend. It's a Tuesday. You know what I mean? I've seen that happen all the time. Like, I asked for $25 more a week. This guy comes in, signs a big ticket deal. He's doing beer bongs Monday night at the karaoke. We play Tuesday, and you're like, holy cow. I didn't do my research or my background information on this guy. And it happens, right? Now you're stuck with him, or you cut him and you take the loss. But like you said, you don't really have the opportunity to do that at the junior minor hockey level.
Correct. No, and I think you kind of like You hit on an interesting part there, sort of inadvertently, but the background checks on players, so to
Mhm.
speak. Um, like
It's,
I think it has to be out there that, listen, if you're a crazy hockey parent, it's a small enough hockey world that
mhm,
that gets back around.
mhm,
And again, I'm telling you this as a guy that I try to do my homework on players. Do I get it right
mhm,
all the time? Of course I don't.
mhm.
But I know that if I look at a kid's history and he's been at 4 different clubs over the last 4 years, I can guarantee you that I know at least one guy that has coached him, right,
Mhm,
or worked with him, and I'm going to figure out why.
mhm,
Now, if the answer is because you're a bubble player and you're just trying to find a team for the season, hey, different story, right?
mhm.
Totally different story. But if it's because, you know, because you have a bad attitude, because the parents are overbearing, guess what?
Mhm.
If there's a kid that's anywhere close to that, and I know that there's a negative like that in the background, guess who I'm taking every time?
Yeah, yeah. It's not worth the stress. It's not worth the hassle. And I've seen that so many times where a guy's got a long list of teams, and it's like, okay, but he's a sick player. Okay, is that worth it? I think at the pro level, a lot of times I found that it is for GMs and stuff like that, just because you get 70 points out of the guy, but he drives everybody in the room nuts. It's not really his problem if you're winning games, right? I think a lot of things come down to winning games at the end of the day. And I've played on those teams where the best player was probably not the best teammate, but you're still winning, you're still making money, et cetera, et cetera. So it works out. But I think that's what I try to tell kids, back to my answer to that question, is bring the things that you can control, right? Bring that positive attitude, bring that positive energy, get to sleep on time, get your nutrition right, get hydrated, show up mentally ready to go, visualize yourself doing well. I think there's so many other factors. That's a lot of the things I try to preach on the old social media, is that there's other factors that go into being a hockey player besides your skill level, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
skill level, skating, shooting is a huge one, right? You can't get past that. But I think I made a career out of doing the other things well, right? I'll be the first to admit I'm not the best skater. I'm not the best shooter of the puck, but I worked on those things and I got better. But I brought a lot of the other things. I'd block shots with my face. I'd fight guys. I'd grind it out in the corners. I'd find a way. And like, that's what you got to do at tryouts. You got to find a way to make an impression and know who you are as a player. Like, your self awareness is huge. If you're not a goal scorer, don't try to go through the whole team and score goals, right? If you're not a grinder checker, don't try to run guys all practice, right? It's not going to look good. You're going to get a position. It's just play your game. Do what you did to get there. And I think that goes a long ways.
It goes a really long way, and this probably goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway because it never ceases to amaze me. But especially if you're talking about anything at the bantam level or higher,
Mm-hmm.
you just can't afford to come in out of shape. Like
Yeah.
there's just
Yeah.
no excuse. If you're playing competitive hockey, and you hear this a lot at the youth. Well, he's been playing lacrosse or he's been playing baseball, and you go, that's fine,
Mm-hmm.
but my job's to field the competitive hockey
Mm-hmm.
team, and
It's not the same.
well, right, and it's not like the tryout dates are a big secret,
Yeah.
right? Like if this is the first time you've been on the ice,
Mm-hmm.
don't be surprised if your number doesn't get called.
Yeah, and don't be surprised if like you were running all summer and lifting weights all summer and you were playing lacrosse all summer and you hit the ice and you still feel gassed 5 seconds into your first shift. Hockey's different. It's a lot different. Like, you got to be putting in the reps on the ice to get that on ice conditioning up. And trust me, I've done that. I've worked out in the summer, quote unquote, hit training camp and thought I was going to die 5 minutes into the first practice because I was out of shape. Like, I think that's the next point I want to hit on, is to stop lying to yourself. Don't lie to yourself that you're in shape, that you're training, that you're putting in the work if you're not. I've done it. I've lived by it. I've been the party boy of the summer where everything was great. I'm just going to show up at camp and be a superstar and just light things up. You're not. Like, hockey shape is a real thing. And if you're not in it, you're not in it. And if you can afford to take the first 2-3 weeks to get in it, like I was at certain times because I had a contract and things were fine, okay, do it. But if you don't, show up, man. Because I've showed up to camps where I had a good contract and I've been cut because I was out of shape and I thought I was putting in the work when I wasn't.
Yeah, and let's be honest, like even when you and I played,
Mm-hmm.
it was a different
For
ball
sure.
game,
For sure.
right? Like now it's such a science, it's so exact.
Mm-hmm.
Like we could get away, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I play college hockey, and you can get away with not working out every day
Yeah.
because that was the nature of the beast,
Yeah.
right? And now it's just
Mm-hmm.
it's so scientific that
Yeah.
it's just magnified.
Like,
If you're not
how
in
many
shape.
guys wouldn't be working out all summer, skating with somebody all summer, trying to at least try to take care of their body. Probably 75% of guys are doing that right now. Would you
Yes,
say? Plus,
absolutely, if not higher.
yeah. Because
You
if you're
know,
not, you're
it's
just falling so far behind.
no, it's and that's it. And one thing I do want to clarify is I kind of made a comment about lacrosse and baseball, and I don't want to sound like I'm anti
hmm
multi-sport,
hmm
but at the same time, understand what you're trying to get
hmm
out of this out of in this case we're talking hockey. So
hmm
out of hockey, right? If you want to play at the highest level of hockey, great, but understand there's certain benchmarks you have to hit along the way.
I would say that's a great point to bring up because I'm 100% not anti playing other sports. Growing up as a kid, I played every sport. Probably drove my parents crazy and busted their bank accounts, taking me from hockey to baseball to leaving soccer early to get to the second period to being in the car with my shin pads on going to the baseball game. So I think multi-sport is key. I think when kids ask me how do I up my fitness, I always tell them play as many sports as possible. But maybe leading into that tryout, this is more we're talking about 2, 3 weeks out, 6 weeks out. Just make sure you're getting on the ice more than you're not and getting that hockey shape up. And it's a long summer, right? You can do a lot of things. And come time to prep, make sure you're prepping correctly and you're ready to rock and roll.
Yep, absolutely. So Matt, here's one element that you and I got into not got into a discussion about, but somebody had tagged us on Instagram about it, and we kind of both put our 2 cents into it, and we had slightly differing views on it. So I think it's cool to talk about.
Yeah.
But we got posed the question is, what are some drills I can run for tryouts?
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of went 2 different directions on it,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm very much the guy that says, here's a puck, go play. I want to see what happens 4-on-4 or 5-on-5 and see what happens. And, but you had a slightly different answer. So I'll kind of let you kick it off.
Well, now that you say that, it's funny you say that because when I went to tryouts, if the coach said we're just going to scrimmage, I would be the happiest guy in the world. I'd be like, yes, I can show my stuff. I can grind it out. I can be the net front guy. I can tip pucks. I can, do what I do, right? But then if he said, well, we're going to do an hour of drills and we're going to do 20 minutes, I'd be like, oh, man, I'm going to get gassed here for sure. But my answer was basically based on my experience, kind of thinking back on it, put the kids through the drills, then you can expose the weaker skaters, and then you can see where kids are at, right? That was kind of my take on it. I'm not sure if I even 100% agree with that take. I think maybe a mix of both is good because, like you said, let's get the scrimmage going. Let's see where these guys are at. Might be easier really just to suss out who's who and what's what. But yeah, I basically said run them through some drills, see who's weak skaters, see who's strong at skating and whatever, and go from there. But yeah, I'll let you elaborate on what you said.
Well, it's interesting because my thought on it has maybe changed a little bit based on what I posted, which was just straight. I just want to see him scrimmage.
Yeah.
I think actually it has a lot to do with you as a coach, right? And number one, it's how well do you know the group? If you know the group,
yeah,
what are you looking for, right?
You can
You're looking
see
for
their skills in the scrimmage, right? You
exactly.
Don't need the drills.
If you've been on the ice with them for 6 weeks, like we talked about before, with a spring program or something like that, then you don't need that skills. But it also goes back to how comfortable are you in how you evaluate skills in a game scenario, right? And so I think that's where maybe my perspective is a little bit different. For me personally, like I'm very comfortable evaluating skating in a game environment. Like it shows me enough habits. I've watched enough of them that I feel comfortable making an evaluation off of game skating, as opposed to having to see a drill where they're doing crossovers, just as a simple example. Now, that doesn't mean it's wrong to run a crossover drill if you're not as comfortable like understanding the difference in a game scenario. But for me personally, I look at it and I go, I feel comfortable in my ability to assess where they're at in their skating.
Do you think that, sorry to cut you off, do you think that the different levels would change your thought process on this? So say like running a peewee tryout compared to like a midget AAA or like a junior A tryout would make a difference on how you run things.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's always a filter process, right? The higher up you go, pretty much everybody that's going to be on your ice is going to be closer to the same level, right? So your differences are a lot smaller. It's excuse me, it's rare that you get to U16 AAA hockey and you have guys on the ice that can't skate. And certainly if they can't skate, guess what? You don't have to spend any time. You don't have to spend any time on them. You already know. Again, the top's easy, the bottom's easy. but yeah, if you're running a peewee, maybe it is good to watch some one-on-one drills, right?
Yeah.
More of a drilled setting where you're really where I saw it this year, and I got to sit through for our program. I got to sit through the tryout process for every single level, including in the states. The first year of AAA for most programs in most states is squirt major, so second year squirt, which I forget what's the Canadian term for squirt for 10U.
Novice.
Novice. Okay, I always get novice and Adam mixed up.
Yeah.
So, so that's an instance where none of those kids are coming from AAA hockey because there is no AAA hockey
Yeah.
prior to it, right? So you're really trying to figure out who can move, what's the difference between the two. So like in those settings, I actually did enjoy watching them run, some one-on-one drills and kind of get an idea of like all of a sudden you realize like, oh, that kid that looked all right while they were skating around, like, oh boy, he's not fast enough backwards as a
Yeah.
defenseman.
And like what I want to say is I think a lot of times those just drill focused only tryouts, what happens is, and this has just been my experience on some levels, you get a lot of kids that are amazing in practice, amazing in tryouts. They can do the forward to backwards cone drills, whatever the drill may be, like a rock star. Scrimmage comes, they make the team, games come, zero impact, zero effect, zero goals. They couldn't mix in an assist if they were like beside the net with no goalie. You know what I mean? They just don't have that level of the playmaking level. They can't translate that practice skill to game skill when there's pressure, there's contact, there's whatever it may be. I could name guys right now, I won't, but that would just blow your mind in practice. But they put up 2 points all year. So I think I would much rather lean to doing a scrimmage style. And because like you said, if you're paying attention, you're a good coach, you can see because skating in practice is irrelevant, really, if you think about it. If you can't do a forward to backwards pivot and get back on defense in a game, what's the point? You know what I mean? If there's a little bit of contact, someone's pulling on you, you can't explode through that or work through a check or get to the net. What's the point of being able to do it in practice? Who cares, right? We're trying to win games, right?
Yeah, and what's always interesting too, right, is once you hit the bantam level and checking becomes part of the game, it's always interesting to see what happens when that puck gets dumped into a corner and a guy goes after it or pulls the chute, right? And all of a sudden he's like, I'm going to take the the detour here so I can actually hit you.
Yeah, and you could have got there first, right?
You could have won that race.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that's a really good thing to think about when running through those tryouts. But there's a million ways to do it. There's a million ways to kind of get to the same answer. And I think that just try them out, see what you do. Maybe do a mix of both. Maybe just focus a little bit on the skating just to see where certain people are at and go from there. Because I'm sure you'd rather have the bubble kid who's going to be that guy who's nails in the corner, first guy there every single time, being hard to play against, and the kid who is going through the drills at 1,000,000 miles an hour perfectly, right? Who would you rather have on your team, going back to what you said earlier?
Absolutely. You want some character, you want some grit, right?
Absolutely.
You want the guys that are going to go through and they're willing to participate in everything, that you ask of them. And I mean, I'd be curious. I'd be curious to hear some of your guys, feedback on it and what you've run and what your opinions are on this. You can hit us up on Instagram at Matt. Yours is at Hockey Pro Training.
Yeah.
And mine is at Kevin M2 Hockey. So we'll obviously post those in the comments as well. But feel free to DM us and let us know some perspectives on that. Yeah. And what have you run and what have you seen and what have you learned? It'd be kind of interesting to hear some other perspectives too.
For sure. All right, guys, we're gonna do a couple questions here that came through on Instagram. So the first one's coming at us from SN_LA19. I always love the creative Instagram names. So shout out to you, SN. So his question goes as follows. My question, I'm going to fire this one off to Kevin, let him get started. How to create confidence in corners, or how to learn really making the play, example, taking a dangerous shot or creating scoring opportunity every shift. All right, we're going to start with this. Let's just go with how to create confidence. It doesn't have to be in the corners, but how to create confidence on the ice, in the corners, taking contact, whatever that may be. I think that's what he's trying to get at. So how would you tell a player to create more confidence on the ice, or how would you work on that with him?
So it's actually one of the more common things with the older players that we spend a ton of time on. The confidence is typically bred by repetition, right? So in this particular case, we're talking about in the corners and inside body contact. So to me, the answer is actually pretty easy. It's train that way. Mm-hmm. It's train in scenarios where you're taking pressure in the corner, right? And when I say scenarios, it can be a drill. all you need really, if you want to start to be more comfortable in corners, ask a coach or ask your buddy to try to pin you on the wall, right? And then slip the pressure. So now you're getting comfortable taking contact. You're getting comfortable finding the opening that's created by the opponent. And then in terms of figuring out sort of how did he word it? Like more tricky plays or
Yeah, I think
dangerous areas.
yeah, it's taking a dangerous shot or creating scoring opportunities almost every shift.
Well, the dangerous shot thing, like that's again, if you want to work on how do you create a scoring opportunity and have confidence inside of a tough angle shot, guess what? Work on
Do
tough
it.
shots.
Yeah,
I mean, go off ice and turn your net sideways,
yeah.
so you have a small angle left at it, Um, again, it's just confidence.
Mhm.
It's confidence. I think the thing with both shooting and corner contact that's very underrated is your ability to skate
Yeah.
and be comfortable on your edges and comfortable in a powerful stance. And then also, certainly in the corners, even in shooting, right? It's a lot of ability to open hips and change angles and
Mhm.
that. So start with your skating, but then train inside of that contact and the pressure you're trying to create.
Mhm. Good answer. Good answer. And I think my answer to that is I'm going to take it kind of off the ice and give an example of just this podcast. If you want to be better at anything and have confidence in anything, it's really simple, right? You have to do it. You just have to do it, do it, do it, do it. So kids always ask me, how do I get a better shot? Like just these vague questions, and my answer is always the same. It's like you learn the proper technique, you get coached up a little bit, then you just do it 1,000 times, right? Am I a podcast expert? No. Do I have confidence making a podcast? No. Will I have confidence making a podcast 15, 20 episodes in? Yes, I will, right? So it's like anything. You got to put in time, you got to put in the reps, and you got to just work at it. So, like Kevin said, find a simple drill, get out there, get a buddy, and practice. Because what you do in practice, this is an old cliche, but it translates to a game, right? You want to practice like you play. So get out there, dig in the corners, work on different shots, work on different angles, and eventually over time, that confidence will be there, right? So it's just like anything, put in the work, put in the effort, and you'll slowly find the confidence will grow, I think. And it's just how it works, right? It's fairly simple. You know what I mean? If you're nervous and you're scared, you don't have confidence talking to girls, what do? You know what I mean? You go talk to a million girls. I'm no expert on that subject. That's kind of a little bit off the topic, but you guys know what I mean, right? If you want to improve on something, do it. Simple.
Absolutely.
So I think that's one of the reasons we got this going. We wanted to give back to you guys and just get started. So you got to do it. You got to work on it. You got to practice it, work out the kinks, and you'll get there eventually. Yep. All right. This next question is coming in from Adrian.dio daddy on Instagram. Sorry if I mispronounced your name there, Adrian. But this question says, hey, man, I was just wondering if you could give me some cardio drills to do at home and also some drills that will help out my strength and foot speed. This is a question from a while back I thought I'd save for the show just because it's one I get quite often. I don't always know how to answer it, but maybe I'll let you go first and give you my take afterwards.
I think it depends on what you have access to. I think
Very true.
pretty much anybody can, if we're talking lowest of the low budget, get some chalk and draw a ladder on the
Yeah.
ground, right?
And tape works as well if you really want to get creative.
Tape works great until it rains, but it does work great for the moment. And you can do simple things like 1 foot hops and icky shuffles and scissors. Like very simple ladder drills.
Yeah.
And the key is do it consistently, do it with good form. That will help a lot with speed. That's easy. Cardio, without getting real specific, again, assuming we're talking basic, train like you would train for hockey, right? You're going to do a 45-second shift and then you're going to get about 2 minutes off. So do some sprints.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Do short sprints, do interval training, and, bikes are good for that. If you have access to maybe not a regular bike to go sprint down the highway or something like that, but like an exercise bike or a stationary bike, hit a sprint for a minute and, rest for 2.
Yeah, I love that answer. And mine will be kind of somewhere just the same. The only thing I would add to that was make sure, like you said, be consistent with it. Find something you can do that's hockey specific and do it 4 or 5 times a week, right? It's going to be no use to go do a sick bike sprint workout on Monday and then not do it again until next Tuesday, right? So consistency is going to be key with all these things. There's a million things you can look up on YouTube. There's a million different workouts. If you have access to a program, you can afford to sign up for a gym, work with someone who's working with hockey specific stuff. I think that's obviously your top end bet, but You can always do body weight squats. You can always do lunges. You can always do deadlifts. You can always do all these kind of things on your own without the use of any weights at all, right? So it depends on how creative you want to be. Depends on how you want it. I know I used to play with a couple Czech guys that knew Yarmir Jagr, and they said he was doing 1,000 body weight squats a day since he was like 16. Is that true? I'm not exactly sure, but I could see it, right? Why not? Why not? Why can't you do 1,000 body weight squats a day, watching House of Cards for 3 hours, whatever you're doing, right? Get up there, do your body weight squats, do your lunges, do your sprints. You're going to be good to go. You're going to see some improvement, right? It might not be perfect, but it's a lot better than doing nothing.
It's better than doing nothing. And the one thing I'll add to that is do it with a buddy if you can,
Yeah.
because it will push you so much harder than you'll push yourself individually.
For sure. Accountability partner is key. Everybody knows when it's time to quit and you're by yourself. It's pretty easy to quit, right? But if you got
pull the chute
buddy beside you who's full energy and he's ready to rock, you're going to keep pushing, right? You don't want to be the guy that quits early. So great ad there, Kevin. So I think we're going to wrap this up for the first episode, guys. What'd you think, Kevin?
I loved it. It was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to hearing some of the feedback from the listeners and kind of see what they've taken from it. See some of their perspectives on the tryouts and the topics. And no, it was a good time, Matt. I appreciate you hosting it and
Awesome.
Sort of being the quarterback there.
Yeah, that was fantastic. So if you guys are looking to get your questions answered on the show, you can hit me up on Instagram, Hockey Pro Training, or Kevin HockeyShare.com would be the best place to send you an email. Or what's the best place to reach you at, Kevin?
We are going to set up a page here, hockeyshare.com/questions.
Perfect.
And you can use that to submit questions for this podcast as well. So hockeyshare.com/questions. That'll go right to both of us, and we'll get a chance to hopefully read your question on the air next time.
Perfect. If you guys are looking for any more free skills and drills to work on, you can check out my program over at hockeyprotraining.com. Check out the free courses, and we will see you guys at the next episode. Bye for now.